What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a very special edition of NFL Picks. Welcome to the official playoff predictions pick'em video. In this video, we're going to be going through all the playoff games, how I think they'll all go, going through every round. We're going to go through the Super Bowl, who I have as my Super Bowl champion here, how I think the tournament is going to come out. What does my tournament look like? Well, let's get right into it. Final results. I know it's flipped, but last week's in the overall record, but it's whatever. Overall record, I clocked in at 167 to 105. Pretty up and down at times. I had some really good weeks. Also had some pretty underwhelming, disappointing weeks. But hey, that happens when you're picking games. Some weeks you do pretty good. Other weeks you don't. Week 18, I went 8-8. Week 18, anything can happen. Last week of the season, finishing 500. Lock of the week for this season, I went 12-6. And upset of the week, I went 7-11. So let's get into wild card weekend, super wild card weekend as they're calling it now. And man, do I think it is actually a super wild card weekend. Let's start off with the very first game here. Playoff football returns to Houston for the first time in 4 years. The Cleveland Browns, and the story that there has been the final few weeks of the regular season with Joe Flacco and the story of the Cleveland Browns. They go to Houston to take on a Texans team that I don't think anyone saw coming this year, led by C.J. Stroud, led by that dynamic offense. The future is bright in H-Town. And I tell you, man, this is a game that you look at, and it was very tough to pick. Honestly, I think a lot of people would lean the Browns, and for good reason. The Browns were hot. They finished off the final few weeks of the regular season very strong. Joe Flacco has come in, and he was one of the Cinderella stories of the final few weeks of the season, effectively saving the Browns season and having a career resurgence all of a sudden after it looked like his career was over. And then you look at Houston all year long, clawing and battling and scratching through. They've had a lot of those one-possession games, but in the end, C.J. Stroud has always found a way with that Texans offense to get them on top of a lot of these games. It's in Houston. I would probably expect the atmosphere to be pretty electric. Man, it's very hard to pick against the Browns, but I just got a feeling that energy in that building is going to what leads the Texans to victory. I really do. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick the Houston Texans here to upset the Cleveland Browns in wild card weekend, getting the win and moving on to the divisional round. Next game we have Saturday night, first ever playoff game, Peacock exclusive. The Miami Dolphins, it looked like they had the AFC East on lock. And when I tell you, I sure as hell guarantee you they would much rather be playing in Miami this weekend than having to go to Kansas City with the weather that there's expected to be. I think this game, it's going to be very tough for both teams to really get much of anything going. It's not the offensive shootout. I think it could be capable of being. Tyreek Hill's return to Arrowhead, that's a big story in this game. It does feel like this game is going to be close throughout. By the way, Stephen Rose, I see you. This is going to be my second game. With that being said, it's in Arrowhead, and Miami, I got a feeling is really going to come out and have a super, super tough time dealing with these conditions. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick the Kansas City Chiefs here. So you can mark that down as the second one for this week. Man, I just overall, it feels like that home, them being an Arrowhead, them being the home team, them being used to that weather, or at least more equipped to deal with it than the Miami Dolphins, I think is the big edge here. I think you have Patrick Mahomes. You still have Andy Reid. You have that defense that has been playing relatively well. Miami's going to struggle. Give me the Chiefs in the spot. Moving into Sunday, first game on Sunday, and man, you want to talk about it, another game where it's definitely going to be playoff football because it's going to be treacherous weather up in Buffalo. The Bills went on an amazing run, winning 5 straight games to wrap up their 4th straight AFC East Division title. They get the 2 seed in the NFC, and they welcome in the Pittsburgh Steelers, who themselves went on a 3-game winning streak at the end of the year to sneak their way into the playoffs. And this is going to be another game. I think snow might be in the forecast for Buffalo. I know it's going to be cold up there. So this is going to be another one of those games. That running game is going to come really key for both teams, but especially the Buffalo Bills. And to be honest, even though you got to admire the work that Mike Tomlin always does with those Steelers teams, there's a reason, he's never been under 500, and it's probably going to continue that way. He is a damn good coach, but the Steelers, they don't have it in them, I think, to go into Buffalo and win a game like this. So give me the Bills here. Move on to the next round. Running game dominates as it has these past few weeks. Defense does their part. Bills win this one. Moving into the 4:30 window in Dallas, you have the Cowboys. Man, they stole the NFC East from the Philadelphia Eagles, snuck in the last few weeks to get the division after Philadelphia really kind of fell off. And man, has that offense looked electric this year. This feels like if it's any year that the Cowboys can finally get over that hump, the first few rounds of the playoffs, it has to be this year. You're welcoming the Green Bay Packers in. And Green Bay, this was really thought to be a rebuilding year for them. It didn't look like their season was going to go in the direction that they hoped midway through. They got off to a pretty all right start, but around week 6, week 7, they were riding like a 3 or 4 game losing streak. Jordan Love was struggling. There were questions of if he was even the guy for the future, but since then, Jordan Love has proven he can absolutely be the next one in line. From Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, it looks like Jordan Love might be the next one in line in Green Bay and leading that Packers franchise. They have a lot of young weapons. The future is definitely bright there. But going into Dallas, to me, this kind of feels like that one game that is the certain. It feels like the Cowboys should win. And if the Cowboys don't win this one, then you could see Mike McCarthy going. You really could. If you crap the bed against this Green Bay team, that, granted, give all the credit into the world to them, but they're just not ready to go into a Jerry world and beat the Cowboys. So to me, you got to go ahead and pick the Cowboys here. I do feel like this should be the one certain of the week where the Cowboys should be able to take care of business. Offense gets it clicking. Defense does what it does. And the Cowboys come away with the win. Sunday night in Detroit, playoff football returns to the Motor City for the first time in 30 years. And man, does this wild card game maybe have potential to be the game of the playoffs. Matthew Stafford returning. The Rams won the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Missed out on the playoffs last year. Back in it this year as a wild card team. And Matthew Stafford returns to Detroit. Jared Goff taking on the LA Rams, who pretty much left him to die along with everyone else. That pretty much left Jared Goff to die. He went to Detroit, and he has turned his career around. This is going to be an amazing game right here. I don't have to explain anything. Offensive shootout all the way, I think. And this is a game that I really think you want to look at. The Rams are hot coming in. Kyron Williams, the running back, so they can run the ball well. Obviously, Matthew Stafford has that playoff experience, has won the Super Bowl. Puka Nacua, the amazing season he's had, but man, you can't discount what the Detroit Lions have done. You just can't. So to me, I gotta ultimately tip this to who has home field advantage. It's the Lions in that dome. Probably going to be as loud as it's ever been. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Lions here to win and move on to the divisional round of the playoffs. I think this would be the Lions' first playoff win since, God, I can't tell you when. But one way or another, give me the Lions to pick up the win here, move on to the divisional round, and beat the Rams. Monday night in Tampa Bay, the Philadelphia Eagles, man, did they blow the NFC East in the past few weeks. And man, listen, Philadelphia has been on a real downward spiral at the worst possible time. They're having to go down to Tampa to face a Buccaneers team that is dangerous. No, they might not be flashy. Yes, they might have been in the worst division at football. But one way or another, Baker Mayfield had an amazing year. There's still Mike Evans. There's still Chris Godwin. Rashad Wright, the running back. He kind of had a breakout year. And that defense can do damage. And it's a very real possibility A.J. Brown might not play in this game. So that's going to make it even tougher for the Eagles, in my opinion. And with that being said, you want to talk about another potential upset alert here. I think you could be looking at this, in this game. This would feel like a spot where Philadelphia can get right. But to me, it doesn't feel like it. Their season has been deteriorating the past few weeks, and it feels like it's going to come to an abrupt end in Tampa. I'm going to pick the Bucs here. I think Baker does just enough. He gets the ball into the hands of Mike Evans, into a Chris Godwin. Philadelphia is going to have issues with their offense. Tampa Bay, it's not the most electric place to go into, but it's going to be a playoff atmosphere. It is. Those Bucs fans are going to really be into it. And after this, maybe does this raise questions about Sirianni? Who knows? I would say he should be safe another year. For Jesus Christ, he just led him to a Super Bowl last year. That's the way it is in Philly, man. So that being said, I'm actually going to pick the Bucs here to win and move on to the next round. So I'm riding with all home teams again. Well, all home teams this wild card week. And man, I just like where the home teams are. I like the home teams in all of these games on wild card weekend. I just feel like ultimately they have the advantage. Moving on to the divisional round, man, as we get down to it, divisional round. Starting off, and obviously the schedule isn't just official. I'm just kind of assuming what I think it would be. So first game we're going to get into, Houston Texans going to Baltimore, face the Ravens. Ravens obviously have had the rest. They were the best team in the NFL during the regular season. Lamar Jackson's going to win the MVP. Houston going in there. It's going to be a very interesting game, in my opinion. The Texans, obviously, you can say, have definitely overachieved. I don't think anyone would have thought they would have been in this spot. But with that being said, I got to pick the Ravens here. I feel like that's a no-brainer at this point. And I know it happened in 2019. Tennessee was coming in. No one was expecting the Titans to win. But it just feels like a no-brainer to me that Baltimore wins this type of game. Houston, they end their season off. Nothing to be ashamed of for the Texans. They had an amazing season. But it feels like Baltimore, they dominate this game. They move on. They're going to host the AFC Championship. That's what it feels like to me. All right, next game we're going to talk about a rematch of that very controversial game just a few weeks ago. The Detroit Lions going back to Jerry World to take on the Cowboys. And man, if this matchup really does happen, it's going to be a very tough one to predict, man. You could definitely see the Lions winning this. You could see the Cowboys winning this. It's going to be in Jerry World. The atmosphere is going to be electric. And no, Detroit does not have the playoff experience, whereas the Cowboys do. And to me, what the deciding factor is going to be here is experience and how efficient the offenses can be. Now, I definitely feel like Detroit, considering the history over the past nearly 30 years, could be in a good spot. However, I'm going to go ahead and take a gamble and say that this is the year the Dallas Cowboys are finally going to get back to the NFC Championship. Give me the Cowboys here. I think Dak Prescott has a damn good game. I think they're going to do CeeDee Lamb goes off. You're going to see that offense clicking. Detroit is going to keep it close all game, but they just can't come away with it in the end. The Lions had a great season, but it will end here, and the Cowboys are going to move on. So give me Dallas to go to their first NFC Championship game since 1995 here this season. Finally, 28 years later, the Cowboys are finally going to go back to the NFC Championship. But who will they face? First game we're going to talk about here in the Sunday window that I have projected. Tampa Bay coming off the win versus Philadelphia, going to San Francisco to face the Niners. Very tough spot, man. Can Baker continue that Cinderella run? Can he continue to lead this Buccaneers team? And can he go into San Francisco and beat the Niners? Let's be real here. That's not going to happen. It just, to me, feels like the 49ers. We know they're the better team than the Bucs. Come on. The Bucs, got a very nice win versus Philly, upset win, but they're going to go into San Francisco, and I don't think they're going to know what they have coming to them. So give me the 49ers here, setting up a 49ers-Cowboys NFC Championship for the following Sunday, man. Talk about all the historic games there's been between those two teams. I think you could be in store for one more of these playoffs. So give me the Niners here. The next game here, Patrick Mahomes' first playoff game, if this is the case. Kansas City going to Buffalo. First time these two teams have met in the playoffs since, obviously, the 13-second game. We all know what happened. Buffalo never saw the ball in overtime. So, man, this is another one. Even though you're in Buffalo, it's tough to bet against Mahomes because when his wall is against the back, we know that he has always managed to find a way to pull away with the game like this, even if he shouldn't. The Chiefs have made, 6 straight AFC championships now? Well, 5 straight AFC championships. But, man, the Chiefs have had a lot of problems this year. We all know them. They've been well documented. They've been well talked about. And to me, man, you got to go with Buffalo here. They're really going to want this game. They're going to want to get back to that opportunity to maybe finally go to their first Super Bowl in over 30 years, finally win their first Lombardi period. And then, man, I just think the issue in this game could be, if it happens, those receivers. They don't have, other than Travis Kelce, a reliable option for Mahomes to throw the ball to. And if they struggle to establish a running game, they could be in trouble in a game like this. So give me the Bills here. Moving on to championship weekend. Starting off with the AFC Championship, the number 2 seed Buffalo Bills going to Baltimore to take on the Ravens in a battle to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. I think this could be a damn good game. You're going to see a mixture of good running offenses and just very talented and amazing quarterbacks in Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Finally getting that marquee game between those two, and two pretty good defenses as well. I don't think this is going to be a really crazy type of ball game, but it's going to be a really good game nonetheless. But ultimately, man, listen, the atmosphere in Baltimore is going to be absolutely electric, and I don't think you can bet against the Ravens this season. This feels like the Ravens season to finally get to the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give it to Baltimore and say that the Ravens are going to win that Lamar Hunt trophy, and they're going to get back to the Super Bowl. And then the NFC Championship in Santa Clara, the Cowboys, the 49ers. It's going to be historic. It's going to be one for the history books. Are the Dallas Cowboys actually going to go back to the Super Bowl? Is America's team finally going to get back to the big dance? Yeah, no. No. I think it'll be a really good game. I think you're going to have a back and forth bout throughout, but ultimately in Santa Clara, the 49ers, I feel, come away with this one. They're just set up in a better position. They're the better team. They're better well equipped, and they're going to come away with this game. They have proven that they own the Cowboys here in recent years, and I think that continues here. And they are going to go back to the Super Bowl for the first time since 2019. So Super Bowl 58, we have finally reached it. The San Francisco 49ers, the Baltimore Ravens, a rematch from Super Bowl 47 in the Harbaugh Bowl. This time it's only one Harbaugh brother in it, even though the other Harbaugh brother is going to come back to the NFL, it looks like. But just John here in this one, going up versus Kyle Shanahan. Shanahan finally looking to avenge all those choke jobs. One I would just love to forget about. The other one in 2019 with San Francisco. Lamar Jackson finally wants to get that Super Bowl ring. Finally wants to get Baltimore back on top. These two teams met on Christmas night. We thought of it as a Super Bowl preview, and the 49ers dominated. Brock Purdy had the worst game of his career. And on this stage, I just don't think that can happen again. I think this can, unless in last year's Super Bowl was one of the best Super Bowls maybe of all time. I feel like you could have a very similar game this year, pretty high scoring on offense, and it'll come down to the nitty gritty, and it'll come down to the end. But ultimately, even though the Ravens did win on Christmas night, to me, the 49ers are going to ultimately end up getting the best here. Ravens won Super Bowl 47. The 49ers are going to be out for revenge. Shanahan has a point to prove. Shanahan wants to get that team back on top. Look at that roster. Look at the talent that there is. I ultimately think that they're going to edge the Baltimore Ravens out. And with that being said, I have the Super Bowl 58 champion as the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to go ahead and say I think the Super Bowl MVP goes to Brock Purdy. Obviously, you could give it to anyone on that team. You could give it to CMC. You could give it to Debo. You could give it to Kittle. You could give it to Nick Bosa. You could give it to Fred Warner. You could give it to anybody. But I think that if the 49ers Ravens really is the Super Bowl, that's going to be a game where Brock Purdy, after the very underwhelming game he had Christmas night, is going to come out, going to have a point to prove, and he's going to want to get the 49ers that sixth ring. And ultimately, I think it ends up happening this year. So with that being said, man, thank you all for an amazing season of picks from week 1 to now. It's been amazing doing this thing. I look forward to doing it all again next year. And with that being said, man, obviously, we still got a lot more bigger things and better things. Not that this isn't bigger or better. Obviously, it is. I love doing this thing, man. I love it, doing picks. But obviously, a lot of Falcons content to push out here coming up. So with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one.